And we're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Business Inside the Game. Business Inside the Game in partnership with the NBPA, bringing you our Town Hall series. The title of this Town Hall series is about voting, but since the recent verdicts from Breonna Taylor, we're going to dive into that. I'm super excited. Last week, Michelle and I talked about everything from voting to economics, to finance, to education, to the players movement, to unification, and all the things that that the NBPA has done in partnership with the NBA to advance voting, to advance Black voices in entrepreneurship. And so today, everyone, I'm here with a great group of panelists to talk about our right to vote, the history of voting, and what that means to each and every one of us out there. So let me start by introducing our panelists. Malik Hubbard, Senior Advisor and Political Strategist, the co-founder of Moving Ohio Forward. He served as part of Obama's re-election campaign, partner at Inclusive, an organization whose mission is to ensure that correct me if I'm wrong, the BIPOC voices represent political, government, and advocacy organizations. I'm sorry. Del Ho, leading voting lawyer at the ACLU, the director of the ACLU's Voting Rights Project, and supervises the ACLU's voting rights litigation nationwide. Previously with the NAACP, on the legal defense side. Next is Tina Charles, the legend, the legend, two-time Olympic gold medalist, WNBA Rookie of the Year, 8-time All-WNBA, founder of Hopi's Heart Foundation, leader in social causes, and a huge voice in the empowerment of women's basketball and voices of all women across sports. And last but not least, live from the bubble, one of my good buddies, I call him my little bro, an OG in the game, a vet, father, husband, businessman, philanthropist, 3-time NBA champion, and co-captain of this year's Miami Heat, who are looking to go to the finals, and a big voice and, I would say a leader behind the scenes and also on the front line of voter rights and, community servitude, right? Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Udonis Haslem. All right, so the power and the right to vote. Know your vote, the Voting Rights Act. Why is this so important to us, Dale? I want to kick it off with you.
Yeah. We have seen over the last, I just want to say thank you. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I direct the voting rights work at the ACLU, and we have been digging out and fighting against just wave after wave of laws trying to make it harder for people to vote over the last decade. It wasn't always like this. In the 1990s and 2000s, voting was getting easier around the country. You had the motor voter law, which Bill Clinton signed into law in 1993 so that people could register at DMVs. You had the Help America Vote Act in 2002, which updated our voting machines. 2006, George Bush signed a reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. It passed 98-0 in the Senate. No one voted against it. And then suddenly, almost on a dime, before the 2012 presidential election, 19 states passed 25 laws that made it harder for people either to register to vote or to cast a ballot. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why they decided to do it then. Because if you want to know why they wanted to do that before the 2012 presidential election, you just look at what happened in 2008. We got our first Black president, and we had the most diverse electorate in our nation's history. 25% of the electorate were voters of color, young people turned out at a higher rate since they had since 1992. And on the surge of participation from those groups, that's how we got Barack Obama. And it's only when that happens that states decide, oh, it's too easy to vote. We have to make it harder for people to register. We have to make it harder for people to show up at the polls. So you get a state like Texas, they pass an ID law where you can vote with a concealed weapons permit, but you can't vote with a University of Texas student ID card. You get Florida banning voting on Sundays before election day, when souls to the polls efforts are happening. In Florida, about 20% of the electorate is Black, but on Sunday, over 33% of voters were Black. And that's not something that was like a surprise to the people who passed this law. They knew exactly what they were doing, and that's why they got rid of Sunday and not other days of early voting. That's what we've been dealing with for the last decade. These states and one side of the political debate deciding they're not going to try to compete for the votes of voters of color and of young people. They're going to try to suppress participation from those groups as long as possible to maintain their grip on power as long as they can.
You're muted.
Udonis, we recently lost the great John Lewis, right? Who risked his life for us to have this right to vote. And part of his legacy, was the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I want you and Tina to expand on this. Talk about, now in 2020, the athlete becoming kind of the voice and the leader and the champion of, the right to vote or bringing opportunities for the community to have this opportunity and this outlet.
I'll let Tina go first.
Oh, thank you. Again, just thank you for having me. But when I think about your question, and just athletes being on the forefront to vote, this platform comes with a responsibility, and a responsibility to those who look up to us, to a responsibility to those who's going to come within our leagues and our generations after us. And so for me to be a part of this, it's just to say that the participation in any election, voting is a key freedom to American life, a freedom that most other countries do not have, nor Americans in our centuries past had. Not until the 15th Amendment allowing Blacks to vote, not until the 19th Amendment allowing women to vote, but excluded Black women and other disadvantaged groups who were not able to be a part of that narrative, but played a pivotal role in the passage of this 19th Amendment. And so the fact that I am able to be a part of this narrative now, and my other Black peers within the league, representing 80% of the league, it is very important that we do show up. We already have enough disadvantages, as Dale mentioned. We already have enough suppressions. We don't need to allow our psyche to believe that, my vote may not count, to be stacked up and upon that list. So for me, just representing the league and just what the WNBA has been able to do, just partnering with Rock the Vote since 2018, and for all the eligible players right now, 90% are registered. So we are doing our part within our platform, and that's the reason why you do see these shirts that say vote. It's not just something we're doing because we have to wear it during warm-ups. It's something that we believe in and that we champion.
Love that. UD, can you expand on that?
Yeah, definitely piggyback on what what Dale is saying as far as how hard things have become to vote. I think back to just listening into a Zoom call that I was fortunate enough just to hear Michelle Obama speak, and one of the things that she pointed out was that when Obama won, it was one of the biggest landslides in presidential history of the space that was created between him and the person that was behind him. So it showed the power that we have when we really come together, when we show up and we vote and we really, feel like we have a voice and we feel like we have a cause. With that being said, the NBA platform, to be able to come together and be able to speak on these things, because let's be honest, where a lot of us are from, we don't trust politicians. We don't know much about politics, but we trust the athletes. We listen to the athletes, you know what I'm saying? So for us to have this platform, we have to be educated. Like Tina said, there's a responsibility that comes with this, you know what I'm saying? So we got to know what we're talking about. We got to know who we're endorsing. We got to know what we're speaking on, you know what I'm saying? So, I think all those things are definitely important, here in the NBA bubble right now, we've gotten up to about 3/4 of the league, registered, and we're still going up. And we weren't even that close. We weren't even there earlier. So, that's something we're still working on. Obviously, we got a lot of arenas that are opening up opportunities for people to go vote right now. So that's something we're doing. And I think we got about 20 of them. Wasn't able to get it done in Miami, man. I was working on it. I worked hard. We worked really, really hard to get it done in Miami. But we got the museum right next to the arena. So we definitely going to funnel that arena traffic over to that museum to make sure these people vote.
Absolutely. And, one, love what the WNBA and the NBA is doing, especially, the PA, right? By pushing and leading and not being shy, right? Because I know UD and Tina, we've been in generations, right? Where, that voice has been minimized, right? Or that voice, we haven't even had a seat at the table. And both PAs has done an excellent job of really allowing the players to have that voice and the seat at the table. Can you guys talk about, what that responsibility of leadership is? And just going back to what Tina talked about, athletes in the past that have been, that you take your cue from.
For me, it's speaking of athletes in the past and just that leadership, I've been very fortunate to have great veterans around me during my tenure, starting from Connecticut Sun with Kara Lawson and Aja Jones. And then when I was playing for the New York Liberty with Swin Cash and Tanisha Wright, back in 2016, when the lives of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling was taken, New York Liberty, Isaiah Thomas as our president at the time, and Kristen Burnett and Bill Lambert as the head coach, they championed us to be on the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement, and just doing what we wanted to do, having media blackouts where we only spoke about what was going on in society, to just, going out and just wearing our shirts and having representation there, just using that platform. So it really comes a long way to be a leader and just to show, again, like I said, to the youth of what this is all about. It's more and bigger than basketball.
Yep.
Definitely. I think, the PA did a great job of giving us this platform and allowing us to speak on these things and, be bigger than just basketball players. And I think for me, it was a little different for me in our situation. I think, BD, when we coming in, you follow the OGs and you learn more about the game of basketball. You learn about, how to survive in this league and different things like that. And even growing up in my household, voting was never a conversation. In my house, voting was never a conversation when I went to school. And it definitely wasn't a conversation when I was hanging out with my homeboys. It was just never a conversation. So for me, to be able to be a leader in this league and to be able to be a leader on my team, I had to educate myself on it. I had to align myself with certain politicians in my community of Miami, the ones that I could trust. And I found some ones that I could trust. I found some ones that, are from Liberty City, from my hood, that have made it out and that have gotten education and they came back and now they're commissioners. And it's somebody that I was able to endorse and work with. So, for me, I felt like if I was going to speak on these things to the next generation, I had to kind of know what I was talking about. And I was kind of taking the time away from maybe golfing or doing something else and sitting down with, my homie, Keon Hardeman, in Miami, and who's now the commissioner and who I think one day can take it to the next level. So for me, that was really what I was able to do. And that's how I took that responsibility.
I love that. And then moving to Malik, talking about moving Ohio forward, right? And the difference between this election and past elections you worked on, right? And just following up on the athlete's voice, right? The activist voice, talk about moving Ohio forward. And then we'll also talk about, how can we move ourselves into a voting capacity where everyone wins?
Thanks, Mr. Davis. It's really good to be here with all of you. It's an honor, and thank you for what you're doing with these town halls and the impact that it's having. Because I see it everywhere. A lot of people are talking about it, and I also want to definitely commend the WNBA and the NBA in your efforts in this as well. I mean, in this COVID pandemic that we're having, and when the only normalcy a little bit that we have is watching the playoffs in the NBA or the WNBA. And to see that statement is being made continuously and that conversation is being had, it really makes a difference. It makes a difference to me. It makes a difference to a lot of people. And that starts a lot of conversations like, Udonis was saying, with people who don't have these conversations normally. They want to know, like, why are people wearing these jerseys, and why are they wearing what they say on the back? So I think that's something to be commended about. I think, Moving Ohio Forward was an organization I started back in 2014 with a group of basically friends of mine who were in the political realm. And our aim was really to make sure that we were targeting people of color, specifically Black people in Ohio, in the 6 major cities. As we've seen in the past, and we see today to some extent, where the Black vote is neglected. And so we wanted to make sure that we were targeting people and giving them a reason to vote. In that time, there was a wave against progressives and Democrats, so it was very difficult to do this. So a lot of the resources didn't go to Black communities, didn't go to brown communities. So we raised money to make sure that we can communicate with them to get them out and get them educated about voting. We weren't successful in those campaigns. Many of you know that the great Senator, State Senator Nina Turner, was one of those folks who was running for Secretary of State then, that we were really trying to help get elected. But we were unsuccessful in that attempt, but I think that we did make some groundwork in doing more educational things and making sure that people were registered. I think, the difference is now between those elections then and now, and some other elections I've been on. I think that, in this COVID situation, and this may seem obvious to most, but the most effective way to communicate with people about voting is in person. You want to knock at the doors, you want to be out at the grocery store signing people up or registering people to vote. That's been taken away from us. We can't do that effectively now. So now we are trying to figure out how to communicate with people in a very digital space with all this information coming in from all different directions, which makes it a little more difficult. And so with me working with NextGen America, like Mr. Davis said, we're the largest youth mobilization organization, trying to speak to young people, specifically when it comes to young people of color, makes it even more difficult. Because they're consuming information at a rate and from different places that is unimaginable from people in my generation and before me. So we are trying to make sure that we are educating people, not in dismantling the misinformation that's coming out. I mean, if you talk about the leaders in this country now who are giving false information to the public about voting, just like Dale was saying, that corruption there it could have immense consequences as far as like what this electorate looks like going into this election. So we're battling not only like trying to prove that, where we are and where our political or our policy positions are where we should be aligned, we're trying to battle misinformation, which was the bigger thing. So I think that, trying to overcome that is something that we're thinking about day to day, and we're trying to move those needles every day to try to get young people more involved in the voting process.
Yeah, that's excellent. And then, the unfortunate news of yesterday, right, of Breonna Taylor and, all that is happening now. I would pose this question to everyone, well, I want to start with you, Dale. Like, how does voting on a local level, right, really change, right, what we're seeing that's happening? One, the frustration with the police, frustration with the judicial system, these officers, not being punished. Like, how does voting on a local level change that?
It's huge. We don't talk about voting at a local level nearly enough. When we talk about voting, we don't talk about voting enough. But when we do talk about it, we always talk about president, or maybe we talk about governor or senator or something like that. But the criminal justice policies that affect people's daily lives, those are almost always made at the local level, and the people making those decisions are elected. In some places it's the district attorney or even the sheriff, right? But the city council certainly is elected. And those are the people who are making these policies. It's not the president of the United States who's making those over-policing policies in Black communities that are resulting in events like this. It's these local elected officials. I brought a case of voting right. I had a voting rights case in Ferguson after Michael Brown was shot. because we looked at the numbers and we asked ourselves, like, how is it possible that you have this city that is majority Black, but it has almost an entirely all-white power structure, right? And it was because the election systems there, one of the reasons was the election systems there weren't fair. They had these local elections in March or April when no one's turning out. They purposefully delinked them from the presidential elections in November when you have all these people excited about voting and turning out in large numbers. And then they set up the voting system itself so that Black voters couldn't come together and elect people from their own communities in order to be their representatives. So it's just really, really, really important that people get the information they need to make informed choices about voting, not just for president and Senate, but also for their local officials.
And then, Tina, a lot of women have, worn the Brianna, right, on, the back of their jersey. Just, express, one, your feelings, and, two, why are we not voting, right? Or why don't we understand this? And, how is the WNBA, right, with this united voice? How are you guys kind of penetrating the market to, one, continue to amplify Breonna Taylor's voice, but to also take action?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we have to start where the WNBA, the WNBPA, partnering with the African American Policy Forum, and joining forces with the Say Her Name campaign, which brings awareness to invisible names and stories of women who have been victimized by racist police. Oftentimes, Black women are not on the memories of America. Black women have been killed under the same circumstances, regardless of mental illness within their homes, Breonna Taylor, or while driving, Sandra Bland. And so when you say her name, when you see the name Breonna Taylor, it forces you to have to know their stories. And that's why it is of importance. And that's why this season did not fall at the wayside with what the WNBA was able to put out to make sure that these women will always and consistently be a part of the national conversation at the same rate of the male counterparts who have passed away at the same time.
That's amazing. And Malik, what can we do, right, from this moment, moving forward, right? Do we take this as a loss, or how, what are your suggestions as far as taking this and using it for something as far as, the local vote and the education around voting and the motivation around voting, that you feel, one, Breonna Taylor's name, but, just the case and all that you're doing?
Yeah, I think I want to, say what, just piggyback up what Dale was saying as far as like what the local elections and things like that mean. I think that this tells an important story about Breonna Taylor. I think the story around this is that, like, we've already identified this as a problem. The thing is, like, what do we have to do about it? And I think that we're talking about voting here, but this day and time that we're in right now, voting is the bare minimum you could do for your community and for you. There's responsibility now as you being a citizen in this country, especially if you're a Black or brown person, that probably, it's always been this way and it should have always been that way. But I think this has put an exclamation point on it that you have to be responsible for your community. And I think looking at like what these offices are and what they actually do, I think about, what Rashad Robinson and my good friend Kwesi Chapman over at Color Change is doing. I think about, Steph Brown and Quentin James at Collective PAC, what they're doing and trying to direct people to look at these district attorneys races, these AG attorney generals races, and these judges races, because that's what shapes our what happens in the government and how those laws affect you. I think, one thing that we have to be thinking about too is, in these processes, and I'm pretty sure Dale can speak more to this than I can, more educatedly, but it is more of, these how we determine how these folks are prosecuted and how they go through the system. I'm sorry that the word is I'm trying to get to this.
Man, you know what it is.
But the grand jury system, as I'm saying, needs to be reformed. I'm sorry for just rambling, but I think, thinking about things like that, I think is very important to understand. And so not only being a voter, being an educated voter, and also beyond that, getting involved, going to your city council to figure out what's happening, going to the school board to figure out what's happening. And I know as time is, I wasn't always this way. I mean, when I was a younger person, I didn't vote as much, but I think as now I got older, I have twins that turn 18 months this week. My view on the world is very different, and my protection around my family and people around me is very different. So I am constantly trying to be more informed about what's happening in my community so I can impact, and making sure that those people, and I think the one thing we have to remember, as these elected officials, they work for us. And that's the most important thing you have to think. We elect them to do what we think is best for our community, not for what they think is best for our community. So I think that, just being informed about what's happening and understanding the offices and being engaged, I think that's where we can go from here.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And UD, I want you to pick up on that point, because you've actually taken it a step further, right? And you've empowered your homeboys, right? And the local community, right? And not only empowered them, you partnered with them, and you are one person who never forgets where he comes from, right? You are there, you are in the action. Talk about, what that means about, the interconnectivity of unifying your local community and kind of, creating the change that you're doing, one in Liberty City. And if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, well, Liberty City, man, is not no stranger to, police brutality and violence. If you talk about the McDuffie riots, and that happened in '79, and I wasn't even born yet, but when the verdict came, I think it hit around 80. Arthur McDuffie was beaten to death by, I think, about 5 to 7 police officers. They end up using they end up using when they don't have to speak immunity. The Immunity Act came into play. Nobody had to talk. Obviously, Arthur McDuffie died, and nobody was convicted. The riot in Miami went on for about 3 days. If I'm not mistaken, about 5 or 6 people were killed. This is stuff that I got bits and pieces from my father. But Miami is no stranger to these things. So, me being born and raised in Miami, I think I have a tremendous opportunity and a responsibility to the community. You know what I'm saying? Like, people think about Miami and they look on TV and they see the beaches and all that stuff. And I try to tell people all the time, South Beach and Miami is really 2 different places. We consider that like a whole nother side of the bridge. They don't even share their tax money with us. That's not really Miami. You know what I'm saying? When you come down to Miami. So I have a tremendous responsibility. I was one of those people that was voter suppressed. You know what I'm saying? I was one of those people. And the people that have spoken before me, I had to change the way I think. My energy is different. The way I protect my family is different. You know what I'm saying? And, how can I be a leader and speak on different things and things that I'm not doing myself? So, I made that change a while ago, you know what I'm saying? But to have this platform and to not use it to speak on that when everything is going on right now as a Black man, as a father, and everything that's going on to Black women. My mother was the strongest person that I knew in my life, you know what I'm saying? She passed away. So, that's my hero. You know what I'm saying? So the things that are happening to Black women right now, I did not sleep well last night when I saw what happened with Breonna Taylor. It was hard to focus on the basketball game. Thank God I don't play as much as I used to. I don't know if I was able to put the ball in the hole.
Imagine you out there like that, bro.
When I get mad, I get mad, my game go. I'm like Bruce. I ain't like Bruce Lee. You know what I'm saying? He tastes his blood and he play better. I play worse. You know what I'm saying? So last night my mind wasn't in it. You know what I'm saying? So I can't imagine. You know what I'm saying? As a Black woman, how you guys are feeling right now. So this platform that I have now, I was fortunate enough to partner with, my boy Bron, in the FRC, which is the Florida Restoration Rights Coalition, which I call them reformed citizens. Whatever people want to call them, I call them reformed citizens, where we're able to raise money and fight for the rights of reformed citizens to go out there and vote. We're talking about people, and once again, I like people to educate themselves on this, because the first thing people like to say is, how can you get the rights back for murderers and rapists? Those are people excluded from the rights that we're fighting for. People. So when nobody wants to listen, they always just want to throw stones at, why are you fighting for the rights of these people? We're not talking about murderers. We're not talking about rapists. We're not talking about those kind of people. We're simply talking about people that some people lost their rights for writing a bad check, different things like that. And once you get out of jail, after you so-called paid your debt to society, all of a sudden now the state of Florida has created this thing where they add all these trumped up charges where reformed citizens aren't allowed to vote until they pay these fines and fees. What we've been able to do with More Than a Vote is we've been able to partner with the FRRC and raise money to get these reformed citizens their rights back to vote. Once again, like we talked about earlier, they're making it harder for people to go out there and vote. And this was just one of the things that made it harder for people to go out there and vote. Once you get out of prison or jail, and you pay your debt to society, it's hard to get a job. How are you gonna pay these fines to be able to vote? It takes time to get back on track, halfway house, whatever you got to go through to get your feet back up under you. Now we're talking about paying these fines to go back and vote. Now when you ain't getting the money, you can't pay the fines to vote, it's just a vicious cycle. We understand how that goes. So, I'm trying to help break that cycle in Miami, and we partner with a lot of great athletes and entertainers all around the world to help break this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, one, thank you all for doing this. For me, the great thing I get in moderating this is I get to, listen and retain. And it's really about getting local, understanding local, empowering local, but also, using this united voice, right, to, amplify across all channels. And Udonis, the work you're doing, you and LeBron with More Than the Vote, Tina, back in 2016, you were actually fined for wearing a BLM shirt. And now you're donating your whole salary to causes fighting for social justice, right? One, I salute you. And, two, talk about, what went into that thought, right? Because, that is not only extremely thoughtful, but that is action, right? So, and then also, how can we take action?
Yeah. So, the whole thought of donating parts of my salary, that started when I started my nonprofit, Hope's Heart Foundation. We raise awareness to sudden cardiac arrest through placement of AEDs. And through that program, every summer, my WNBA salary, I would donate it since starting in April 2013. And so when I saw the live basic lynching of Mr. George Floyd and the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that went by, I thought, what better not to forfeit what I do at Hope's Heart and donate to organizations that support change, and donating $846 specifically, just as a reminder to these organizations as to why I'm doing this, and to remember why you need to continue to be progressive and change. So for me, it was easier said than done. Just growing up in Christian faith, to put others before yourself and to be a servant unto others, that's success to me. Not what I do on the court or what people may know me for, but just the impact that I have on others' lives.
Yeah, I mean, I know about you, Tina.
Thank you.
On that real quick.
Hey, let me sit back. Y'all talk.
I love all that, man. That's like amazing, because I think a lot of people, speak, Black Lives Matter and speak on doing different things, but when you actually take action, what I'm saying, like what Tina has been able to do, and everybody's action is not going to be financially, but however you take action. What I'm saying? I think a lot of people get into, well, he's not doing it my way, or he's not doing it this way. I think that's where we go wrong, and focusing on how somebody's able to take action, or what their cause, or what, how they make their move into this cause. I don't think, everybody can have the right to say that. I think that's where we go wrong at. What I'm saying? As long as people are taking action and doing something, what I'm saying? I think that, the people that we have to continue to educate around us and bring us with us, it just makes us stronger. But I don't think we can alienate people, or however you say that word. I'll never say it right. Alienate people for not, understanding fully, but they're still taking action. And then you bring those people along, you educate those people, and you just make them stronger. I think when you try to separate those people from the cause of the movement, just because they're not doing it our way, or the way I'm doing it, or the way Tina's doing it, or the way you might be doing it, or Malik might be doing it, or Dale, I think that's when we run into problems. But I think everybody taking action from a different angle, if we can all pull it together, I think it just makes it stronger, man.
I think it's just all about, it's all about the donation of your life.
Yeah.
No matter how that is, but just basically to sum up everything you said, it's just about the donation and the donation of your life. I think that's very key. So
hold accountable out here. If anybody listening, I'm on the heat. I hold them accountable. You know what I'm saying?
But speaking of that, like
on the phone, I put together a Zoom call with Spo, the mayor, and the police chief of Miami, and now in Miami, and the Heat right now in the process of creating a program with the Miami-Dade Police Department that's going to go through proper police training and change some of the police training with the rookies coming in and even some of the veterans. So if you a current player out there and you got that, if you got that responsibility, that power with your organization, you're making $188 million, $1 trillion that they're paying you out there, sit in there with your own and hold them accountable.
Yeah, for sure. And Dale, I want you to jump in here because that's what we're talking about, accountability, right? Voter suppression, like the ACLU. And it's not, it's not about, one, you've made this statement encouraging everybody to make a voting plan, right? But talk about accountability and how can we get the ACLU in here, right, with UD and what Tina is doing, and like amplify both causes, right? Pulling in Malik from the work that he's doing, on a national scale, right? How do we hold this group accountable, right? I'm gonna put that on you, Dale, for the ACLU, because I think that you guys are policy and backbone, right, to this movement.
So I think we are kind of dancing around some of the same spaces, but I would love to figure out a better way to all be working together. I mean, what Udonis was talking about earlier with returning citizens and that whole issue here in Florida, that's something that we were working on. We worked on that ballot initiative in 2018 to get people's voting rights back. It's amazing how 65% of people in Florida voted for it, right? It wasn't like a partisan thing. It wasn't one racial group or another voting for it. You had broad support across the board. We worked on that. And then when they came back and said, okay, you can get your voting rights, but you're going to have to pay these fines and fees, we brought a lawsuit on that. We represented 17 people who couldn't figure out, in some cases, even how much they owed because the state doesn't keep the records from convictions from the early 90s and earlier, and people who couldn't afford what they owed. We won the trial, but then we lost on appeal a couple weeks ago in a really, really terrible decision. But I think now what FRRC is doing, and I mean, they've been doing this for years, so it's not just what they've been doing now, but raising funds to try to help people pay off what they owe. That's where the energy, I think, has to flow to next on this issue. But I mean, just the lengths that they're going to try to stop people from voting. I saw that Mike Bloomberg raised like $14 million for this effort, and the state of Florida responded by referring him to the FBI and saying he's trying to buy people's votes. I mean, it is crazy what the lengths they will go to try to stop people from voting. I mean, people who are watching this probably know these stats already, but I don't know, every time I think about them, they just kind of shock me that there is so much over criminalization right now, and in Florida in particular, that 1 out of 10 adult citizens in Florida can't vote because of a felony conviction. And for Black men, it's almost 1 out of 4. I mean, that is crazy. I don't know how you can call Florida a democracy when that many people and that many Black men can't even participate. So we're doing our best on our end, bringing the lawsuits, but I think you're right. We got to figure out a better way to, support other efforts that are going on down there instead of just kind of like, lobbing in these, legal actions that we file from time to time.
Yeah, Malik, you've contributed to Obama's campaign, right? And you've seen it. I feel like you were on the, the stem, right? Now we're into the powder keg being lit and everything is explosive. But, you know, you've kind of seen this, you know, progression for this disruption, right? How do we mobilize? And how big is this election going to be in, you know, like our history looking forward?
That's a good and very difficult question. I think that I think that, you know, where do we go? How we mobilize? I mean, I think we have to go person by person. We don't have that much time left. I think we might be under 40 days now, or close to 40 days. I hate looking at that number, so I try not to. But, you know, I think that we have to go person to person and grab the people who we know, who we love, who we care about, and say, hey, you need to vote, and then you need to do the same thing with other people. You need to do other people too. I think, you know, when we're talking about, you know, the difference in this election and why it's important. I mean, I don't want to get too partisan here, but we have a clown that's a racist in the White House and who is doing everything he can to make sure that he wins this election. I mean, you hear one report about him saying that mail-in voting is bad, and you see pictures of postal people picking up mailboxes. I mean, in what world and country does that actually happen? You know, so we're combating a whole slew of issues that, you know, I think if given the license to continue, that's why this is the one of the most important, or the most important election, definitely in my lifetime, because I can't imagine what would happen if this president is reelected and his party is also in power as well. And so if we're talking about like very large things, I mean, how can you trust someone or, you know, or a group of people that 200,000 people have died in the last 6 months? Just think about that. That's millions of people who are affected by that. And that's the worst thing that can happen. These people died alone. I mean, I think about it like in this election, why I should vote, you know, on not the largest scale. I'm from Cleveland. I just moved here to California. Man, I haven't hugged my mom or my dad or my brother in almost a year and told them I love them. You know what I mean? Like, these things are important. And that's not even policy. That's just personal. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about, you know, where do we go with the Obamacare, the ACA? Where do we go with trying to make sure that even in this crisis that people have paid leave to take care of their families and themselves when they're sick? You know, right now, I mean, my kid's not old enough, but I mean, think about like universal pre-K and things like that. These needs that people have, raising the minimum wage. I mean, these things that people have will never, ever happen if this party is allowed to continue their power. And so I think this is very personal to me, and it should be very personal to everybody else. And I think on that level, you find the reason why, if it doesn't happen, that reason should make you want to talk to another person or 2 other people or 5 other people, or send out a text, a Facebook message, IG, to make sure that people are coming together to make sure that we are in alignment as far as like what needs to happen, because these issues we're talking about shouldn't be partisan issues at all. Like, none of this should be it's for the good of people. And like, I'm sorry, I'm getting, you know, I'm
with you. It's personal. I'm with you. I done cut a few people off. I done cut a few people off that wasn't talking right about who they was voting for. I'm with you, Malik. It's personal. They talk about if they talking about when I have conversations about voting and what's going on, and I don't care what you say about taxes. When you say you're gonna vote for that man, I cut your ass. I cut you off. People talking about money and taxes, man. That ain't got nothing to do with this, man. This is inhumane. Like, it's inhumane. It's crazy. Like, I don't care about the tax money. I don't care about the Republican Party being more conservative and tight. I don't care about that. I don't. Right now, it's bigger than that, man. So for me, it is personal, just like you said, man. And for you, Tina, it's personal. And for all of us, this is personal, man. Like, it's been some people that I had relationships with for many of years, man. And when we had conversations about politics and they say they voted for Trump, They probably ain't heard from me in a while, and they probably ain't gonna hear from me for a while. I am cool on that, like, cause I look at it different. I don't look at it about you just voting because this tax situation is gonna help you. Nah, man, this my people out here. This my people out here. Don't tell me about no tax dollars. I don't want to hear that.
And so, UD, why is this election personal for
Oh,
you?
I jumped the gun on that one. Huh?
No, it was all good. No, because I want you to take that, right? And I also want you to share, your motivation and inspiration. So giving you the floor to tell people why this election is personal to you, and, and give you the platform to, say your piece to encourage people to vote, and why it's personal for you to vote this year.
I mean, because, the way I was raised, you know what I'm saying? The values that was instilled in me as a man, as a child growing up. If your family, didn't have a meal, you can go get a meal somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? If you, needed a dollar, here's a dollar. If I can help you, I help you. You know what I'm saying? I believe that leaders lead by bringing people together and finding, a common ground and moving forward, not by fear and intimidation. And all I see from this guy is fear and intimidation. So therefore, I don't consider that a good leader. All the leaders that have led in the past through fear and intimidation have been very, very bad people. And this continues to just be the case. When you talk about, the mailboxes and the voter suppression and everything that is really going on, when we're finally getting, the voice out about voting, now all of a sudden mailboxes, start to disappear, and different things like that. And I just always been a person where you tell me I can, I show you I can. So you're just gonna make it harder for us. We just gonna go harder to figure out ways to get this message across, and we're just gonna go harder to figure out ways to vote. You know what I'm saying? And when I get back to why it's personal to me, is like I said, I got 3 boys, black men, big black men. They ain't the average size black men. They can be intimidating. You know what I'm saying? And I'm to the point now where I'm like, call me, don't call no police. If anything happened to your phone, if somebody jump behind you, you see the lights, call me. And then we'll figure it out from there. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't really know. You know what I'm saying? My oldest son is in college. He played football at 300 pounds. He got dreads. You know what I'm saying? So he looks like what? So what? Because that's what he looks like. That's what you're gonna like. I don't want to hear that. Like, I grew up around people that might look a certain way, and they're amazing people. They're great people. You know what I'm saying? I hang out with them before I hang out with politicians. So, for me, it's just about being on the right side of it, man. This ain't about nothing but doing what's right. And I was always raised to do what's right. That's what my mom always taught me.
Dale, how is this personal? And talk about the importance of, this election and, from a historical standpoint going forward.
For me, like, we cannot have justice in this country until everyone has an equal voice and unless the will of the people is heard. So that's why I got into voting rights. Some people get into voting rights because they like government, they like elections, I was never one of those people who was like into student government or something like that. I think of elections and voting as important because they are the lever by which we can get justice in this country. One of the challenges that I see right now that frustrates me is that it's hard to get the message out about how to vote, the easiest way to do it, because unlike almost every other democracy in this world, we have not one system of voting. We have 50 different systems, a different one for every state, different rules for how and when you register, how you vote absentee, if you can vote by mail. And when the pandemic hit, which I know it's scrambling everyone's lives, it is making elections so much harder. We can't get poll workers right now because more than half of poll workers usually are over the age of 60. Those folks don't want to, volunteer to be inside with a bunch of other people for 13 hours or whatever it is. They're high risk for COVID right now. So the first thing that we did when we looked at the pandemic was, how can we make it so that people can vote without having to go in person on election day? There aren't going to be enough poll workers, not enough polling locations. We don't want the 2-hour lines that we saw in Milwaukee, the 5-hour lines we saw in Atlanta, 7 hours in Las Vegas during the primaries. And because we have this crazy system where there are different rules everywhere, we have 16 states where normally you can't vote by mail unless you have one or more of these very specific excuses that they require in a state. Only 34 states let everyone who wants to vote by mail. We had to bring a case earlier this year in Tennessee on behalf of a 2-time cancer survivor who is immunocompromised, who wanted to vote by mail in the primary. And the state said, well, if you can physically travel to your polling place, you can't vote by mail. You got to go there in person. This guy was going to have to risk his life, basically, when we have the worst public health emergency in a century in order to vote. So, the state relented on that. Now we have 45 states that are letting everyone vote by mail this year. So that's great. You got another 40 that have early in-person voting. That's great too. We want as many people to vote early as possible. Do it before Election Day. We have a website on this that educates people how to do it, the different rules in their different states. But it's personal for me because, I care about justice. And we're not going to have justice in this country unless we have a free and fair election that lets everyone vote without having to risk their health in November.
Amazing. Amazing. And Tina, why is this election personal to you? And then I want to add a question. What legacy are you hoping that athletes who are involved in this movement leave behind?
This election is important for me or personal for me, just because I'm voting and making sure that my network votes, just because I'm a Black woman. Black women are more than likely to show up to vote than men. I'm voting for those Black women who are not a part of the narrative that allowed me to have and to allow me to have this access and to exercise this right with the 19th Amendment. I don't think we can have this conversation without bringing up the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg and just all that she championed when it came to voter suppression and not wanting the gutting of the Voting Rights Act back in June 2013 that freed the 9 states, which was majority down south, occupied by Black minorities, to be able to just change their electoral law without federal approval. That's important for me. She knew the purpose and the promise of our 15th Amendment, and to see the turnout, to see little kids getting ready for Halloween, wearing her suit that she would wear at the Supreme Court. That's why it's important. Just to champion women who are suppressed. To do it just because there's individuals who have the slashing and the taking out of their poll locations that are more than a 10-mile radius. I'm doing this for others who can't. So that's what's important for me. And then to your second question, can you remind me of what that second question was?
Second question, legacy that you want athletes who are involved in the movement today to be, what is the leave behind, right? And how the athletes involved today, what do you want that legacy to be?
The legacy for athletes, I purposely wanted to speak on WNBA athletes, especially those who played and participated in this season, that it didn't fall at the wayside, that everything that you did made a huge difference. I don't think there's a wrong or right way to make radical and progressive change, transformative change. And one thing that we have to know is that, and for people to know, is that we're not doing this for recognition. We're doing this to have change in the world. I think the world is still right now, and I think it's a perfect time to try to be transformative. And we have to know and keep in mind and be hopeful that, we're not going to be the ones to see the change. And so we can't stop working, because if we stop working, others after us will not be able to see the results. So even though we can't be discouraged, we can't be defeated about the results in the Breonna Taylor case that came out yesterday. We have to make sure that we keep moving forward and just know they will see the results in the future through what we're doing in our efforts.
Thank you. Thank you all. Before we get out of here, just a couple more questions. I'm going to start with Malik. Malik, what does success look like to you in this election?
Oh man, there's one. I think that success for me personally, I think that we come away with a victory in this November.
And you mean that by what?
I mean that we And again, not to get too partisan here, but again, I think that we elect Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, and Senator Kamala Harris to the White House and as a VP. And then we also are able to reclaim the U.S. Senate and also hold on to the House. And I think that the reason why I say that is that those provide for other future successes. It's only a step. The things that we were talking about before, the ACA, paid family leave, immigration reform, making sure we continue the DREAM Act and we have a pathway to citizenship. I mean, like those type of things this is just the pathway to that. Now, hopefully that when we are able to get this mass of people out to vote this election, that we will continue the conversation. And so they can, as Dale and you and Adonis were talking about, vote in local elections and understand how important that is. So I think, I think the success here is like, different grades of it, but it leads to a larger success down the road. And I hope that we are, I hope we're creating that path for people to make sure that, things are fair especially for those who are less fortunate in this country. And there are a lot of them. And I think we have to, those who are in power or have the voice or the power to help that we can see how those things can change over time.
Amazing. Udonis, what does success look like for you in this election?
Obviously piggybacking off Malik, having a victory where, Biden and obviously, Harris. But I think overall, like Tina said, we might not be around to see the big change, but to see things start to change and to see us start to slowly come together instead of seeing the world so divided right now the way it is. Just to see those things that slowly start to happen and then slowly those wheels that slowly start to turn. And it was for us to once again see how powerful we are when we come together as voters and, as people, what I'm saying? I'm not just saying black people, I'm saying black, white, green, orange, whatever, everybody, as powerful we are if we come together for one cause. I hope that will be successful as well. So, obviously having a victorious election, seeing how powerful we are coming together. And just seeing the small changes that, or being a part of that small change that, can spark the large change one day that we might not see, but I'm fine with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm totally fine with that.
That's incredible. Thank you. Dale, what does success look like to you?
Success in this election would be where everyone who wants to vote can vote without having to risk their health. Where we don't have crazy long lines and where we don't have a president who on election night, while the votes are still being counted, just declares victory and says that he won. Now, we may have to contend with that, right? Because so many people are voting absentee more than ever, and those ballots take longer to count. We may not know who won on election night. That's possible. The three key states from 2016, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, they do not allow for the processing of those ballots until either election day or after polls close. So we could be in a situation where on election night, 40 to 50% of the ballots in those states aren't counted yet. But the president could just say it's all over, right? I mean, the president right now is saying that he will not commit to a peaceful transfer of power, right? He said that yesterday. And a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah, I was reading that.
Yeah. It's shocking. It's appalling.
That's dangerous.
What? Sorry?
It's dangerous.
Dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. No president has ever said that. No candidate of a major political party in America has ever said that. But, I was so scared about it when I heard it yesterday. But today when I woke up, I realized something. It doesn't come from a place of strength, him saying that, right? It comes from a place of weakness. Right? You don't say something like that if you think you're going to win the most votes. I haven't played basketball since I was, on my junior high school team. I didn't make the high school team. Okay. I'm not the most athletic dude in the world, but if I told the other team, I'm not going to respect the scoreboard at the end, when the buzzer goes off, that would probably signal that I don't expect to win, I think, right? Like he doesn't expect to win if everyone gets to vote. So, you know, we're nonpartisan, but, you know, my definition of a successful election is everyone gets to vote, and we'll see what happens.
Amazing. Tina Charles, what is success look like to you?
For me, it's what both the majority, what Dale, Udonis, and Malik had mentioned. You know, to see Biden and Harris in the front office, and to see a great turnout as we turned out in the streets and protest for social justice at these polls, and for them to have, obviously we all have equal equality in voting, but not all of us have equal rights in having access to vote. And so to see a greater turnout right now, I want to say in most communities it's under 50% that people vote. To make sure, and when I'm saying that, I'm thinking about in 2000 with Al Gore and Bush, and you know, your vote does matter. Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, but most states have a winner-take-all system where your popular vote can go to electoral. Like your vote really, truly does matter, and that's why it is very important that you know you do your 2020 census just to combat gerrymandering. Make sure that you do register to combat purging against yourself. Like there's so many suppressions that's against us that we cannot, again, let our psyche come in the way that my vote does not count. So either way how it goes, because we do not know how it goes, to piggyback off of what Dale said, Trump did not think that, you know, doesn't believe he can win. And I don't believe that he thought he was going to win in 2016. I think it was a shock to us all. And even as I'm bringing up Al Gore and Bush, the same like when you think of Hillary in that campaign, how she won all the popular votes, but he got the electoral. So it's very important. So to me, that would be success, is that we just exercise our right to vote, because there were those before us who did not have access to exercise this right. And there's those today who cannot exercise that right. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, just do it for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we're getting crunched for time. UD, you got to get to the finals. you got one more game to win to get to the finals.
Just know that I'm rooting for you, and I'm pretty sure my fellow Kemba Walker, UConn Huskies all day, is gonna kill me. But just know I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for Miami right now. I used to live in Pembroke Pines for like 2-3 years of my life. So Florida, 954-305 lives heavily. My whole mother's side lives in Florida, so I'm going for the Heat. I'm saying that. I'm putting that on the record.
No, you know, good.
I'm putting that on the record.
I'm bipartisan when it comes to.
BD, I already know how it's gonna be, man. I already know if we fortunate enough to get that far, man. You gotta ride with the West Side. I already know how it's gonna be.
All day, every day.
If we fortunate enough to make it that far, I know what you got to do. I ain't gonna even question that.
Oh man, with all that, glad to see everybody smiling. And we love to end Business Inside the Game with what is your business inside the game, your takeaway. And UD, I want to start with you because, you know, when we talk about like, what is your business inside the game? Like, what can you give advice that you can give to people that when UD show up, this is what he brings, right? And it translates to every format in your life.
Man, it transforms every format is just
Yeah, so what's your business inside the game? Like what makes you tick, put you in anywhere and you will perform?
I keep a chip on my shoulder. You would know that about me. Anybody that knows me knows that I keep a chip on my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? And that chip has got me to where I am as a businessman, as a father, as a husband. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, nobody thought I would be in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't drafted, I had to go to Europe. You know what I'm saying? That was a huge chip on my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? I still remember the NBA coach that looked me in my face and told me he was going to draft me. I'll never forget him. I ain't going to call him out, but he know who he is. I keep that chip. You know what I'm saying? I keep that chip. You know what I'm saying? So I remember a lot of things. I don't forget, man. I got a memory like an elephant. So, you know, when you see UD walk in the room, just know UD got a chip on his shoulder, always. And that's not a bad thing. That's a chip that's just motivating me to always continue to push forward and make an impact. You know what I'm saying? My chip is now that I don't play that much as I used to. So what is my impact now? Do they forget about me just because I don't play that much? I got too much of my blood running around in the Miami streets, man. So I'm gonna still do my thing, regardless of whether I play as much or I don't.
Absolutely, I love it. Malik, what is your business inside the game? And, how does that translate if you were playing basketball, running Obama's campaign, or starting a business? What do you hang your hat on?
I mean, I think that I am, kind of like Nana said, I have a chip on my shoulder, but it's quietly, and I'm very competitive internally. Like I compete with people that don't even know I'm competing with them. You know what I mean? Just like my guy from where I'm from, LeBron James said, everything Northeastern Ohio is earned. And I think that, I feel that that's what drives me all the time. Saying I'm from Cleveland, everybody's like, why do you claim Cleveland all the time? Because I'm proud of where I'm from. And I see where, the things that, my grandparents who moved from the South that came up to Cleveland, what they were able to accomplish there, and how that city really shaped who I am, shaped who my parents are. And so when I'm thinking about like my success and how I'm being successful, I'm thinking about how am I representing my family and how am I representing where I'm from all the time. Oh. And anybody who would tell you like 45% of the clothing I wear says Cleveland is somewhere. But I mean, like, this is, I think that really drives me. And so whether it's a campaign I'm working for, Barack Obama or other campaigns, I'm thinking about the people that I used to organize my community so I know it. And so when, I can tell you real people who have real problems. I'm not telling you because someone told me I read it in a magazine or newspaper. Right. And so when I think about those people and the impact that our right to vote and our being involved in the electoral system has, that's what drives me every day. So that's just who I am, and that's my inside the game.
Dale, what is your business inside the game? Right? If you were hooping, if you filing a lawsuit, if you are transitioning in business, what do you go to, to draw your strength and hang your hat on when you transition into a new space?
When I go to court, it's I always have a plan, right? Like I always know what question or questions I'm going to nail a witness on if I'm cross-examining someone, or if I'm doing an argument and the judge is asking me questions. I know what, if I get a chance, well, the 2 or 3 things that I cannot leave the podium without the court hearing from me. And I think, as people look at this election, have a voting plan, right? You asked me about that earlier, Baron. That's one of the things that we're urging people to do. The number one reason why people who want to vote end up not voting is because they miss a deadline. They don't know that their registration isn't up to date, or it gets to election day and they can't find their polling location until it's too late and the lines are too long. Have a plan. We have a 50-state voter guide up on the ACLU's website, aclu.org/voter. It's got the different rules for if you want to vote by mail, by when you have to request your ballot, by when you have to return it, how you do that. If you want to vote early, what the hours and days are in your state. And so just have a voting plan, do it early if you can, take some of the pressure off of election day if you can by voting early in person or by mail. Have a plan.
Amazing. Tina Charles, what is your business inside the game?
My business inside the game is just, just donating my life, just being a servant to others, just always having a refusal to accept what is. I think if anybody that knows me well, that's me all through and through. I'm always trying to evolve. I'm always challenging. I always believe things can always be better than what it is. And that's what I hold on to hope as right now. Like we said, we're not seeing the big changes, but I'm also seeing a refusal to accept what is, which I hold my hat on. And so that's my business inside the game. Is just keep holding on to hope, keep having faith, keep moving forward, and just keep trying to evolve and making the person next to me better and just having an impact on one's life.
It's amazing. And to, a lot of our entrepreneurs out there, I think, when we talk about business inside the game, if I were to recap is, carry an internal chip of competitiveness and carry a chip on your shoulder, right? Be okay carrying a chip on your shoulder. be okay with knowing where you come from. Don't forget, I always say, never forget, right? Never forget where you come from. But ultimately, it's really about knowing yourself, being a servant, right? Understanding, the evolution, right, of who you can be out there. And then most importantly, none of that happens without a plan, right? And so when you look at the people, on this panel, they've all had a plan, right? And they've carried, everything that you've seen and everything that you've heard with them. And that's who they are. And they all have chips on their shoulder. They're all competitive, right? But it's all of those ingredients, I think, that breed success. And just, one, I want to thank you all for doing this. This has been an outstanding panel. Malik, thank you. Dale, thank you. UD and Tina, you make me proud.
I just want to say, lastly to what you were saying, just to sum it up, is that just because something may be delayed doesn't mean that it will be denied. And right. I think that's something that we all have to remember, and just something, like I said, just keep having faith and holding on to hope. And that chip, it doesn't mean it's going to be denied. So we just have to keep holding on to hope.
Y'all heard it from the queen.
Man,
Charles. On behalf of Inside the Game and the NBPA, thank you, NBPA. We'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We hope to see you next Thursday. Our next town hall will be discussing dismantling inequality and the push for prison reform. So see you all next week, next Thursday. UD, thank you, bro. I appreciate this. Malik, Tina, Dale, thank you all for showing up. God bless everyone, and go and vote.
Yes, sir.
And don't.
Right.
I honestly believe the Lakers are a little bit better than the Clippers. Now, I know on paper, explain, Lojo. She made the face, I ain't get the explanation. We about to bring you the hottest news in the culture, sports today. Are you ready?
I'm not going to say these are one of ones, and so if you do have them, let me know. Or don't, because I like feeling like I'm the only one with
I remember I turned pro. From that point on, it was just like, don't be sorry. It's just slick.